Hello and welcome to this Kentik in Motion, how AI transforms network chaos to clarity. My name is Philip Gervasi. I'm the Director of Technical Evangelism at Kentik, and I'm joined today by Sean McGinley, who is a esteemed colleague of mine, a solutions architect here at Kentik. Both of us having years of experience as network engineers, as architects of some sort, and from what I learned just recently, Sean is also a guitar aficionado, so I'm really glad to hear that, and I'm really glad that you're here to join me today to talk about AI in network operations, Sean.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Great. And so, what we're talking about today, I'd like to set the stage before we really dive in, is how AI basically transforms what we actually do in network operations day to day. And what I mean by that is, fix problems. Think about what engineers do, whether it's a level one engineer all the way up to very senior engineers, trying to figure out what's going on to keep the network running correctly. Sometimes even forecast new needs. So think of things like capacity planning and figuring out how you're going to add on new sites. And what we're seeing more and more, how we can predict potential new problems. Now, keep in mind, up until recently, these are all things that human beings do, human engineers. And that's what we do right now. So, this webinar, we're going to explore how AI, artificial intelligence, can augment an engineer, not replace. Notice I said augment, help an engineer to transform running a modern, complex, and sometimes chaotic network. So let's do a little bit of a setup here, a little bit of background, share a little bit of a story of some conversations that I've had over the past few years, and then very much recently. So, in many conversations that I've had with organizations, and when I say organizations, I'm mostly referring to enterprise organizations. So, in your mind's eye, think like a large hospital system with tens of thousands of employees, maybe universities. I talk to a lot of folks in universities, big and small, online businesses like retailers, things like that. I even have folks that I talk to that are in very large law firms that span the United States and even internationally. These network operations teams typically have, they have staff, they have decent staff, and they're very focused on the network. But it's not unlimited. They don't have unlimited staff and budget. So, typical enterprises and typical network teams are still going to struggle with working tickets, right? Trying to fix actual problems, sometimes mission critical, so very urgent problems, while also trying to do those things that improve the network environment, whether that's making things more efficient, whether it's improving reliability, whether it's, upgrading gear, right? Racking and stacking gear and getting to a new standard. All of that stuff is a very manual process. And in my experience, Sean, probably in your experience as well, a lot of that is just this manual clue chaining process. And we're good at it, right? Engineers are good at it. It's what we do. We take pride in it. But there are some problems. There's institutional knowledge. There's the problem of dealing with more and more network components. Think about all the overlays that you're running. Think about hybrid cloud. Think about all that stuff. Think about the fact that there's probably somebody on your team that knows if you wiggle the red wire in IDF3, all of building 4 goes down. Nobody knows why, but he knows. And we know not to touch it. So you put a little post-it note on it. We got to get away from that. So some years ago, we saw a real push to embrace automation, network automation, so specifically in the network, to address some of these problems, right? A lot of organizations, they've made progress in that way. And really, if we're honest, many network teams haven't. Today, we're seeing that take shape in the form of AI. AI as a new opportunity to bring, I guess you could say, like advanced automation to the network, something programmatic to solve some of those problems that we talked about. But the reality is that there's a lot of roadblocks to implementing AI in any organization, in any industry, but especially in what we do in networking, when we're dealing with very diverse data, huge volumes of data, often very secure environments. And not to mention that, we often don't have that expertise in our network teams. So a lot of network engineers, directors of networking, vice presidents of networking, those kinds of titles, those kinds of folks that I talk to, they've been receiving this directive to improve operations, embrace automation, and now again implement AI in their organization. That's a very common thing I'm hearing. Hey, we gotta do something with AI in 2026. And the issue that I'm seeing, Sean, is that, over and over again, a lot of people don't know what that means. How do I
Yeah.
start? How do I budget for this? What kind of staff do I need? Do I need to augment my network team? How do I bridge the gap between my network team and my developers that they don't talk to each other and they're in different buildings? Something that I know you're going to cover later on in the slides is, what are the use cases? What are we trying to solve with AI? What are we trying to solve with automation? And this kind of programmatic approach to operations. And one last one. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that a lot of folks that I talk to literally will ask me, "What do we mean by AI in the first place?" So we're gonna answer that today. On your screen, you can see, according to Gartner, less than 10% of companies are AI ready, even though, as you can see there, there's a huge potential gain in productivity, financial productivity, and actually reducing MTTR and all those kinds of things. So, what we're uh, dealing with is the complexity of data pipelines that feed AI, the lack of resources, AI specific staff resources, including the data engineers that you need that create the data pipelines that feed these models. Um, Often we're hearing about leadership giving timelines that are very compressed. So what does that mean? Are we building a bespoke custom system with staff that we don't have, with budget that we don't have, for use cases that we haven't identified yet? So think about that in your imagination, building an entire AI system of your own from scratch. And when I say AI system, I mean something that's secure, right, from the ground up, that's reliable, that you can trust the answers and that works every time, and that's enterprise ready. So as we go through the rest of this webinar, this was my setup for you, Sean. As we go through the rest of this webinar, you're going to learn how Kentik provides pretty much a ready-built AI solution created very specifically for what we do, for network operations. And that's including the data pipelines, it's including model integration, and it's with security built in right at the foundation. So, Sean, I'll give it to you.
All right. So let me introduce you to what we're calling network intelligence, or NI. It's not just a rebrand of what you already have. It's a genuine evolution in how we operate networks. And here's the thing. Network intelligence, like any form of AI, it lives or dies on data. And I'm talking about all the data, historical data, so you can see patterns over time, structured data like metrics and flow records, and unstructured data like syslogs, config files, tickets, and even documentation. The richer and more diverse your data, the smarter your AI can actually be. So let's step back for a second. Your traditional network visibility, it gave us dashboards, graphs, charts. It answered the question, what's happening right now? And that was useful. But we're still the one connecting the dots. Okay. Then came observability. This was a big leap. It brought different types of data together and started giving us real insight, correlation, trend analysis, maybe some basic anomaly detection or prediction. And you weren't just seeing data anymore, you were starting to understand it. And then network intelligence is the next evolution. It unifies even more data sources and layers AI on top to give you a guided root cause analysis. Instead of spending an hour bouncing between tools asking, why is this broken? NI surfaces the answer and walks you through it. It's like having a senior engineer looking over your shoulder, pointing you in the right direction. And then, the autonomous future, that's where this is headed. The future, which isn't as far off as you might think, it is autonomous action, and we're talking about complex automated remediation where the system doesn't tell you what's wrong; it fixes it, and that's the trajectory that we're on. We can go to the next slide. And so, let me share how we at Kentik think about AI for network operations, because not all AI is created equal. And frankly, a lot of what's out there is more hype than substance. And it starts with understanding. Okay. For us, it comes down to this: AI for NetOps is fundamentally about understanding what's actually happening in your network. It's not guessing, it's not hallucinating, it's understanding based on real data, both historical and present. And that means you need serious investment in data collection, data synthesis, and data analysis. Without that foundation, you're just bolting a chatbot onto a dashboard and calling it AI.
Hmm.
So, yep. So, second, And this is important. Our goal isn't to replace engineers, by no means, it's to augment them. A good network engineer does something incredibly valuable, and they chain clues together. They see a symptom, pull a thread, connect it to something else, and eventually land on root cause. Now, what AI can do is automate parts of that clue chaining process and surface practical recommended actions. It's not about taking your job, it's about giving you a head start so you're solving problems in minutes instead of hours. And third, this has to work in the real world. Okay. And that
Yeah.
means it needs to be stable, not experimental. It needs to operate with very little error because a wrong answer in production isn't just annoying, it can be costly. So security has to be built at the foundational level, not bolted on later. And it has to work at scale because nobody's network is getting smaller. Okay.
Okay. Sean, I got to ask, I want to interrupt you here. Everything that you've been talking about so far with network intelligence and then specifically AI is it's very operationally focused. Like you're not talking about we invented some like new algorithm or model or some new like protocol that goes faster than light. This
Right.
really does feel like you're talking about how we can use these tools to just help, engineers day-to-day operations. Am I right? Is that right?
Yep. Yep. Spot on.
Mm, okay. So with that, we're introducing Kentik AI Advisor. So Kentik has incorporated, I guess you could call it traditional machine learning and statistical analysis methods for a long time, for years. It's kind of like part of the platform. It's not like on the menu or a bolt-on feature at all. It's really integrated as part of the platform itself. And now with network intelligence, we've taken like this next step, like Sean said, this evolution with AI Advisor specifically, and that is our AI agent system integrated again right into the platform, access to all of that data that's already there and built literally from the ground up specifically for network operations. So very, very high level, 10,000, 30,000 foot view. The system uses a natural language interface to engage an entire underlying AI system, and that's including workflows, tool calling, RAG systems, and basically an entire application built to programmatically perform root cause analysis and help you as an engineer, your team, solve problems much faster. Again, across very diverse and large data sets. So let's step through a kind of a high level workflow of how this looks, how this works. So on the left of your screen, you're going to see that a person, right? Probably an engineer. I'm looking at my screen here. So, it says, ask AI advisor a question or state a goal. That's probably you as an engineer trying to figure out why, an application is slow in your Chicago office, whatever it happens to be. So you're going to interface with the system using a natural language interface that looks kind of like a ChatGPT or a Claude, but you're not interfacing directly with ChatGPT or Claude or some other model. It's actually the AI Advisor agent system, and therefore it's locked down. We keep that secure, and it's programmed to work only on networking related questions and issues. So you ask it a question, maybe state a goal for the system, and the agent interprets that. That's uh, that's the power of the large language model, right? That's behind the scenes, kind of the brain of the system is that it's able to understand language. I say understand, and I'll use air quotes here, but it's able to use functionality like semantic search and semantic similarity to quote unquote understand what you're trying to say, and therefore create a step by step plan. A plan of action. Again, this is the LLM that's informing the agent system of what this plan is. So that way, the agent then, and I'm here in step three, right? The agent can engage a workflow that's going to include various things, like maybe gathering data from relevant databases, maybe using a RAG system to get information from text documents, like whatever happens to be your knowledge base, ticketing system, vendor docs. We've heard a lot of different things. Folks are using that to get information from TAC call transcripts. A lot of interesting stuff. You could call a tool of some kind. So maybe in that step-by-step plan, there's something where you need to do a trace route or some sort of a ping test, something very basic like that. And so the system will go through that workflow, right? It created to do the troubleshooting, to answer that question, whatever it needs to do, and then report back with a synthesized response. And that's what it looks like from a high level. So let's go through the architecture a little bit more. I'm going to do a little bit of repeat here, but I want to give a little bit more color. The architecture, I guess you could say it's relatively straightforward, although there's a lot of complexity and safeguards in place here from a security standpoint, from a boundary standpoint, and from making this work with real time data. So you can use this in actual operations, not just historical. So there's a lot of components here to reduce latency. And if you know anything about software development and APM, there's that whole lineage component to identify where there are bottlenecks, where there are problems that are causing the entire system to slow down. So, using this interface to the agent system, the agent accesses one of several LLMs, and there's a reason for that. We have customers, and you may have requirements to use one LLM over another. There may be evaluation considerations as well, where one produces slightly better results. Maybe there's an update with GPT, and things have to be adjusted. And again, the LLM acting as sort of the brain of this system to parse that language and allow you to expedite and then create that step by step plan. So with that, you can see that the agent then will call on the tools or invoke the RAG system to get the information that it needs. And just as an aside, RAG is short for retrieval augmented generation. And it's basically a way for the system to focus in on an answer only in the data that you want it to look at. So it really restricts it. And what that does, rather than all the data on the internet, right, like a large language model might be trained on, what that does is it keeps the answer grounded in the data that you care about, probably your flow data or your ticket system, whatever it happens to be. So it's relevant to you and also much more accurate. So there are mechanisms in this architecture to keep the accuracy very, very high. We're dealing with often mission critical networks. So it's important that when we get a response that we know that it's highly, highly accurate in what the root cause that it identified really is, and even the action plan that it gives you to remediate. And then you can see the tools here. Right now, they're limited to only the tools that we provide in the system. And this list could expand as new tools. We find that new tools are needed as there's customer requests and all internal. So there is something that I want to kind of take a left turn for a few minutes and discuss. I've talked about understanding and step by step plans and recommended courses of action. What we're talking about here is this concept of reasoning. And you may have heard of reasoning models in just kind of, YouTube videos and blog posts and in the news. Let's talk about that for a moment because we are doing that here with AI Advisor. And what we mean by reasoning is that a large language model brain system, agent system, can learn from its environment, can plan, and then can do some sort of action. And so the learning that happens from our environment is, ingesting data. It's literally learning, by looking at flow records and looking at metrics like SNMP and streaming telemetry and looking at your log databases. So it's learning. It's aware of the network environment in that sense. And then again, using the large language model, it's able to determine what are the appropriate steps to take here. So you can see on your screen, I have this question I threw into the demo account. Are there any DDoS vulnerabilities in my network? What in the world is DDoS, right? The system has to understand what DDoS means. And then from that, it can sort of interpret, okay, DDoS is probably referring to WAN interfaces on public facing routers, not probably, the gigabit interfaces on my wireless access points in my campus, probably not. And it understands what vulnerabilities are. Are there any open ports? There's this level of understanding, again, via semantic search, that it can reason through and develop, like look at these individual types of data and then come to some sort of conclusion. On your screen, you can see, look when I asked that, it literally built this 5-step reasoning plan process to go through and check for these things and then again produce some sort of result, which we're going to see here in the next screen. And you can see here the action wasn't an action as it pushed config, but it made a recommendation to us. And you can see here that good news, no active DDoS attacks detected, but there are some spikes to pay attention to. There are some things to look at that might be vulnerable to a TCP SYN flood attack or ICMP flood attack, things like that. So again, it understands what you're trying to say. So, Sean, I'm going to switch it over to you because I want to get into some of the capabilities, some of the highlights of the features of AI Advisor.
Sure. So we've covered the vision, and now let's look at what this actually looks like in Kentik. And we go to the next slide. And AI Advisor, it's accessible from anywhere in the platform. You don't have to leave what you're doing to use it. and it is page aware. So if you're looking at an alert, a device, a cloud map, the AI already knows that context, and you could skip the explanation, go straight to getting the answers. Okay. Next slide. Now I want to give you a few examples of where this actually comes to life. Um, Using AI to spot cost optimization opportunities or automate analysis for better investment decisions, forecast capacity before you're caught off guard. It can also accelerate troubleshooting with automated root cause analysis and get recommendations that you can actually validate and capture institutional knowledge in natural language runbooks
Mhm.
so it doesn't walk out the door or when someone leaves. We can also quickly distinguish real traffic from DDoS attacks and understand business impact in the moment. Get clear mitigation guidance that protects uptime and customer trust. So, AI Advisor can take complex network data and distill it into plain language summaries. Instead of parsing through charts and logs yourself, you get the key takeaways instantly: what's happening, what changed, and what matters. Next slide. Now, this is one of my favorites. You can guide AI Advisor using plain language, just to write troubleshooting steps the way you'd explain it to a colleague, and it turns your team's expertise into repeatable recipes. And the result is faster investigations, more consistent responses across the team, and institutional knowledge that doesn't disappear when someone's on vacation or getting leave. So this is you'd use this when you want to the AI to follow a specific process or needs extra context for certain alert types.
Yeah. So I assume then runbooks are going to take that stuff that's in engineers' heads and put it into the system. I mean, I get it. The system is aware of the data, the flow records and the metrics and the SNMP traps and all that stuff, but
Right.
not about, hey, we've seen this before. This is how we can troubleshoot this. And that's what you're talking about, Sean.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Exactly.
Great. So this is all really interesting stuff. The summarization capability, the run books, all that kind of stuff. But what gets me excited is that whole programmatic root cause analysis. How can I use it to like go fix a thing? Can you show us a demo of how that would actually look?
Yeah, yeah. So now with automatic discovery of Azure resources, Kentik generates a network topology view centered on the virtual hub. Now, this gives teams immediate insight into hubs, VNets, gateways, peering relationships, and this is essential context for confident configuration
Okay.
changes.
So I'll stop sharing my screen then and give it to you.
Oh, I thought I was sharing. My
No,
apologies.
no, no problem. I'll give that to you, and we'll switch over to you, and you can take it.
All right, good. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Does say I am screen sharing. My apologies. Let me stop sharing. I'll redo that.
Here we go.
Got it? All right. Sorry about that. So, as I was saying, automatic discovery of Azure resources, generating network topology view centered on the virtual hub. Now, as someone responsible for a shared Azure resource or a virtual hub, I'm going to rely a lot on the Kentik's alerting page to spot unusual traffic patterns before they become problems. So, when
Mhm.
traffic crosses my 40 megabit per second threshold, the alert gives me the context that I need, the timing of the spike, the affected VNets or applications, and a clear starting point for investigation. And since the status here still shows as active, the issue remains unresolved. So this is where I would bring in AI Advisor to investigate. Okay. And what we've got, so what I want to do is ask the simple question I asked: show me traffic over my Azure Virtual Hub over the last 2 hours. And AI Advisor provides a statistical summary of the last 2 hours, revealing that peak traffic spiked well beyond normal levels. The key finding: traffic surged from an average of um, roughly 19 megabits per second to a peak of over 100 megabits per second.
Wow.
And yeah, I know. Um, and so let me move on to, there we go. So getting cost saving recommendations, because usually spikes like that, it's going to cost you, right?
Hmm.
And they come at a cost. So what I asked, what can I do to reduce the cost of the traffic across our virtual hub and from these VNets? And AI Advisor traces the issue to an inefficient traffic path through the Azure virtual hub and recommends direct VNet peering. Okay. And everybody can still see my screen, right? No
Yes.
problems. All right. And there's no manual analysis or guesswork required. It's just a clear diagnosis and an actionable fix to cut necessary costs. Now, that may be all well and good, but the question may be, how exactly do I do that? And so you can ask how would I configure VNet peering on these VNets using Azure CLI and you could skip the documentation search. So when you need configuration help, AI Advisor delivers a complete step-by-step guide with Azure CLI commands tailored to your specific VNets. And the result is faster remediation, fewer mistakes, and the confidence that you're doing it right. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I gotta ask you, Sean, or
yeah.
I gotta disagree with you on a point. You said you could ask the simple question. There's nothing simple. When you were asking about timeframes, various types of data, configuration. I mean, you were asking about variety of types of data and large volumes all in the same, kind of like a query. If you can imagine an SQL query, right? Like there are 20 different things going on. That there's some complexity there. That's really, really neat.
That there really is. And, so the before and after and the cost comparison showing you what you can save, it brings together the detection, diagnosis, resolution in one workflow. So this really showed, how teams can uncover suboptimal routing, driving up cloud costs, pinpoint root causes through traffic analysis, get actionable recommendations such as adopting VNet peering over virtual hub routing. And AI Advisor also provides a step-by-step CLI guides customized to
Mhm.
your setup, confirms the fixes in real time, and quantifies savings with straightforward before and after metrics like we see here.
That's amazing, and the real-time component is so critical.
It
It's not,
is.
it's not a chat bot that's sitting on your laptop where you can ask it
Mm.
some questions, but it is, integrated completely with real-time telemetry, and historical data as well, and like you were saying, less quantitative and more qualitative information like cost information and the vendor documentation to configure Azure CLI in the first place. Really, really neat that it all comes together, and then again through a natural language interface as well. So thank you, Sean, kindly for that demo. Really,
You
really
got it.
fascinating stuff. And of
You got
course, thank you to the audience today for joining. So I will say to you to learn more about Kentik, but specifically what we're doing with AI to transform network operations, I encourage you to visit kentik.com/I or AI, excuse me, or of course you can reach out to your local Kentik representative as well. So thanks so much for joining today. See you soon in the next Kentik in Motion.